Hey, and we're back. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to stitch two videos together, um, or whether this will end up as a part one and two. But we'll just carry on doing the colouring. It's quite an interesting experience actually to um, make a picture and commentate as we go. So I know the red line goes along there. Down there, the buffer beams. I think these bits are blue. It's a good test of memory as well, not having the picture of the thing in front of you. Hopefully it looks near enough like what it's meant to be, which is Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't know how well this is going to come out in this light, and I'm using just basic pencils. So yeah, hopefully you can sort of recognise this as being Thomas the Tank Engine. So what is the point of all this? Well, there's actually, would you believe, an esoteric message in this. It's a locomotive, so it's got a motive, has a purpose. It's Thomas, who is a very useful engine, and he's part of a system, working in a system, and he pretty much runs his own branch, accompanied with Annie and Clarabelle, which I'm not drawing. You can think of this pretty much like the Avatar. You got your coal bunker, and it's using a fossil fuel for an internal fire. If you're to see it from above, as it were, this is called what is known as a pannier tank. So you'd end up with a sort of a schematic, which is basically 101. So, and obviously there's a fat controller in the top hat that's orchestrating things. That's your sort of material aspects. You can be a really useful engine in the material world and serve a fat controller. But what if we flip the script and we now look at this from the point of view of an esoteric story, an esoteric message being shown? And what do we have out of this story, this children's story, which incidentally is, I think it was the Reverend, I can't think of his name, Godfrey was it? It started off as bedtime stories using imagination to tell to his boys, and it's sort of become a huge success. So basically, if we turn this internally, well, there's only one of you, and it's all about one, which is you. You'll notice on Thomas, the one is in yellow. It's referring to the solar plexus, the Christ consciousness. It has an internal fire. It is working its own pathway, its own branch, you could say. Now, you have a soul bar, and incidentally, Thomas works on the island of this fictitious island of SODOR. But is that not what we're doing in a way? Spiritually, we are sowing a door. I mean, Thomas, he's as atom. It's an atom reference. It's a door reference. There could be doubts. You could say, "Oh, that's just what is he talking about? It's all down to frequencies." But it depends what tracks, what branch you have decided to take. So, if you look at Thomas, probably about 80% of him is blue, which is the colour associated with divine feminine. I think I missed a little dome bit on the boiler, which will be blue. Anyway, getting back to the point of this, you've got the soul bar. Now, 3 axles, so it's a trinity, and they're coupled with the side rods, which are like your twin caduceus. They're all working together. They all turn and work as one. And it's roughly about 20% red. So if that's your divine masculine, and obviously the red wheels, the divine masculine side, is the part that carries your entire avatar. But there's an internal fire being created in your smoke box, I think it's called. And you're serving a different controller when you're on the right track, shall we say. So just a little take on how even a children's story, ostensibly, which incidentally started in imagination. Before the books, these were just variations on stories that this father told his 2 boys to get them off to sleep and keep them and also keeping them entertained, and it just grew from there and became books, and then became a sort of animation. Pretty accurate, really, in the detail and everything, apart from the faces. But like in this reality, the avatar gets an identity, and you recognise an avatar by the face. So you can be really useful to the system in the material sense. You can also be really useful to yourself, because it is all about number 1, which is what you are. It's not being selfish, because Thomas is distributing, he's conveying, he's transporting, he's proving his worth, shall we say, and has that internal fire. So it's pretty much a sort of representation of the human avatar in the experience. And we're on an island. Now that island is your reality bubble, and however far you travel from wherever your base is, that really is your world, your island. How big you make it and will clearly depend on method of travel, and obviously the speed will come into it and the distance. But law of averages, we've all got quite small sort of bubbles, quite small sort of islands of SODOR in this reality. And of course there is that controller there somewhere who's in charge of all the operations, as it were. But then if we flip it over to the esoteric and the internal locomotive, as it were, it then becomes a different story and a different track, and leads to a bigger network, shall we say, and it's playing a part of that network. Equally in the material world, as a really useful engine, as much as you can be a really useful engine in the spiritual world. And you will have your Tobys and Annies and Clarabelles and so on. I mean, Annie and Clarabelle in a way represents your twin caduceus as well. They go about with you while you're on your path, on your branch, and you convey them about, they're attached to the avatar, which I suppose in a way it's probably a good thing I didn't draw Annie and Clarabelle, because they're sort of really there. Everything is within. It's not, because we're talking about internal rather than external, and it's a funny way everything sort of flips over. Take for example smoking. There was a time when they certainly in the Western world, and I feel, well, as far as I know, Asia and far the Far East, they have still have multi-million dollars industries in the with tobacco. But of course, the Western world has done a pendulum swing, and then it's like smoking's bad for you, bad for the environment, bad human, bad slave for smoking. But these things are addictive. They've got addictive things put in. So, and there's another little flip, and you're encouraged to use e-cigarettes and to vape. And can't help thinking about vapor canopy and vaping and micro and macro and all that, and just the sort of things that I happen to notice. Wow, amazing. The first video was only 3:44. Well, this one's gone on for 11 minutes. How did that happen? Oh well, I'm going to try and stitch these two parts together. It got sort of paused by a phone call, but that's the way things go. You have to juggle things, and it hopefully hasn't it's not broken the continuity as such anyway. I mean, it's hardly an oil painting, it's hardly a masterpiece, it's just a little bit of fun, and to convey a message. Make of it what you will, but I'm sure if you look at pretty much anything, there will be this magical unfolding and changing your perception on things. Doing language lessons of the heart seems to open doorways, and you are sowing new doors in the mind by doing so. And with each step there is a new reveal, and what once I would have perceived as evil, I no longer do. I can see that there is a necessary purpose to it all, and whether it be true or not, it serves me from the point of view that I don't feel in fear, I don't feel in terror. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm taking a leaf out of nature's book, as it were. Nature is continuously changing. Consciousness is continuously changing by expanding. And you can see in nature, growth is all about expansion in the physical sense. So when we spiritually grow, we are expanding. We're not remaining static. And think of static in terms of electrical energy, for example. It's just is, isn't it? It's not doing anything. It's not experiencing. It lacks drive. It lacks a polarity. But it's that union of dielectric and magnetism. The one is part of the other anyway. It's a bit like the two sides of the locomotive with the coupling rods. This one goes up, that one goes down when they're working in, I think it's called in parallel. But you can get extra traction by bringing them, I think it's into tandem, so they both, on both sides of the locomotive, the coupling rods would both be at the bottom, and then it gives extra traction when you need it. It's you've got a physical version of that. It's as much as anything else, it can be ego that can drive you. It's just keep it on a tight leash, and it's like these red wheels, this divine masculine side. Let it take you somewhere, but don't let it go out of control. You want to be able to control your locomotive, your avatar. You are the driver of it back here somewhere, and you're also the fireman, because you're feeding the avatar spiritually, mentally, and materially. So you got another trinity in that. Anyway, we've gone on for 15 minutes on this sort of what could be part two. We shall see. If I can stitch these together, you get one 18, 19 minute video. If not, you'll have two. So I will say love to you all. Hopefully that has inspired you. Maybe it's click something. There's something you're familiar with, maybe a different children's story, and it's an aha moment, and you can now see it in an esoteric way and internalize all these things about, like the story with all these stories with Thomas, if that's what floats your boat, as it were, and turn the questions inward. And essentially, we're playing all the parts on this world stage anyway. We go through phases, and we can play multiple parts and singular parts all in a day. But don't get typecast. Keep be flexible. Take on all different roles. Gain the experience. That's what this reality is all about. And from my own experience, I can say to you that the more you do it, the more wonders will open up, the more magnificent and fantastic that you'll find this reality really is. It is, after all, a world of Maya and delusion, and can seem quite horrific, but it all seems to have a design and a purpose for us to find something, and the complexities of it, of what there seems to be, would suggest that it's something awesome inside us to be able to find, and that's why these things are all set in place. Certainly makes sense and creates a new order, a new world order within this body, and I feel so much better for it. So hopefully I can impart that and help you find that in yourselves as well. So I'll say love to you all, and ta-ta for now.